versa. I said, I thought I was correct, but you guys fought me on it.
But notice you followed up right away, even if you were willing to give back money if you had been overpaid.
Because you can actually, once they send that money out, they have to recover, and they can try a couple of attempts to recover it, but when you do something like that, sometimes it's just a write-off, but you can at least attempt to try to recover.
Right, I'm just wondering how that would happen. But you were certainly honest there, where you would follow through and say, yeah, I'll write you a check back or something.
I'll give it back.
Not entitled to this money.
Yeah.
Number 5, human resource policies require an investigation of an employment application for new employees. Look at their background, check with former employers and references. That's proper authorization. For B, recorded transactions exist and are stated at the correct amounts. Recorded transactions exist and are stated at the correct amounts. I'm going to deviate a second, I'm sorry. I get so loquacious here that causes it to fall behind. Perhaps some of you have encountered this. What happens if you're a prior employer for somebody and you are contacted by a prospective employer for this person? What are you allowed to say? Or what is your company policy? So somebody worked for you, maybe they left under negative circumstances, now they've got a potential new job, so the potential new employer contacts you for a reference. What is your company's policy? What would you normally do? Would you evaluate their work?
I would go based off their work and their work ethic. One employee,
you would?
Yeah, but because one person left under, had babysitting issues. Her and her husband were going through a divorce, and she couldn't, her hours just did not work for her, but her work was tremendous. She's one of my best prospects.
Okay, well that would actually be a favorable review.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Well, I think legally there's only certain questions that they can ask.
Yeah, that's what I worry about. Normally you'll just say, well, yes, this person worked for us during this time period. Maybe this was their pay rate.
Right.
And I think you're always different. Now, in your case, they wouldn't object because you gave very favorable. It's just that they couldn't keep the hours because of child care issues. But to say like Joe Blow did a lousy job here and was always showed disdain for his fellow employees and stuff, that could really get you in legal trouble. Yeah. So that's why a lot of companies are very restrictive in what they'll say.
Times I've received those calls, I mean, sometimes you can tell whether the company is calling is a corporation or a small mom and pop, but usually when I receive them from a corporation, it's, you know, dates of employment, you know, the last rate of pay, and, you know, would they be eligible for rehire?
Ah, would you hire this person again?
They dance around.
That's interesting because that'll give you a cop-out. If you say, no, we would not be interested, that gives an idea, but it doesn't violate any laws. It's not defamatory.
And sometimes they refer you to the work number, because a lot of companies are using the work number where they will not answer those type of questions. They use the work number to give out their salary, the history on their employer, but if they just need to speak to a manager, which some cases they would, but most HR and payroll people refer you directly to the work number.
And that makes sense. And we got to be so careful nowadays. I think when I first started working, an actual evaluation would be made, like, oh, they didn't do this and didn't do that, but things are so much different now. Anyway, 5, okay, let me see, Part CD. It said you can avoid errors and fraud if you hire competent, trustworthy employees. Let's comment on that a second. Honest, you know, you could have an employee who is honest, but maybe they're incompetent. You know, that's why a lot of times they'll be, I've had students here from Keller who say, yes, I had to like do a test where I had to set up an Excel spreadsheet or something, or I had to show that I was familiar with certain types of software, you know, before they accepted it, before they were a potential hire. So yes, so not all mistakes is because of dishonesty. Some mistakes are because of incompetency. So you're trying to check into that certainly as well. And the background check, obviously significant. And if you get into legal trouble if you hire somebody without doing that check. I remember out west, the Glen Ellen Clinic hired some lady, and then they found out a few years later she embezzled $300,000 from them. Well, it came out that 8 years before they hired her, she had been convicted in Kentucky for doing something similar, but I guess she probably didn't put that on the employment application. No. They never checked. So interesting type issue there. You might save a little money not doing the background check, but it may kick you in the butt in the long run. So we could have either intentional or unintentional misstatements. Part E. The model answer, they talk about testing the calculation of payroll for unintentional errors by employees who are not competent. But they also suggest you do some fraud tests. For example, looking at canceled checks to see if there was any fraud, and compare a canceled check with, for example, supporting documents like an invoice. Okay, 6, the payroll accounting software application will not accept data input for an employee number that's not in the employer master file. I like that. Part A for 6, proper authorization. B, again, recorded transactions exist. The CD combination, if you didn't have this control, you again could have fictitious employees who are getting paychecks. I want to comment on Part E. Many times, a lot of you did some excellent research, and by the way, I'm really trying to reach out for topics to put in the online discussion, and because if I do this course again, it'll be so much easier. And I want to thank you. You've been willing to hit all my topics. Now, this next week I got to struggle because the one computer screen says Hocus Pocus Accounting or something. And then they have a revenue recognition screen, so I'm going to be putting in again topics for you. Or you can do Hocus Pocus, that article thing, if you want to, but I'm going to try and find stuff. But in compliance testing, where you're testing controls, one thing that frequently occurs is that you will do what the client does internally, but you'll do it on a sample basis. So, for example, here you would test the accounting software. You would try and put in an invalid employee number. Put in an invalid employee number because then the software should reject that. Have you ever tried anything like that or so? Or it does make sense though. If it accepts the number, then we got major problems. So I would just say there, test with an invalid employee number and make sure the system rejects that particular number. Okay, number 7. Persons preparing payroll don't do other payroll duties, timekeeping, distribution of checks, etc., or have access to payroll data master files. What's A? 7A. What's A?
Adequate
separation of duties or segregation of duties, yes. B is recorded transactions exist. We've seen that enough times. The CD combination. Again, you could have phantom employees. Payroll clerk could put a fictitious employee in there. And they often say in our text here that, now this probably goes back more to a time when we didn't have direct deposit. And direct deposit, I don't think has been really that prevalent since maybe late 80s or 90s, where everyone used to get a paper check and that was, given to them. But the person distributing the paycheck should not be the person responsible for preparing payroll. Because again, they could have that fictitious employee in the system, and some of the things that Letitia told us that could occur. Now, Part E, one thing you can do in Part E, and I put it as a topic in the online discussion this morning. I woke up a little bit earlier, so I got in sooner. And I call it the surprise payroll payoff. Sounds like a quiz show. The surprise payroll payoff. Does anyone know what I'm referring to here? Okay, we actually had this when I was at CBI Industries. Somebody to get their paycheck or to get their pay stub would have to show employee ID. Then whatever checks or stubs were not picked up at the end of the day, we'd have to investigate to see why not. This is meant to find out for fictitious employees. I remember at CBI Industries, part of our work was union, and the union always said, we want to have advance notice when you're going to do the surprise payroll check. And we said, well, then it won't be a surprise. You know, but I remember finally they would give in or something, or we'd come up with some kind of compromise. But that's the old idea. Everyone's got to show up here. They get, if they're direct deposit, to get a pay stub or a pay record, or to get their actual check. Show me your ID here and everything. So
what
otherwise,
if they were retirees and they would just
that would have to be handled separately. Or what if somebody was on vacation? Were they legitimately on vacation? Or were they at a different job site?
That makes me wonder, yeah.
Yeah, it was just another issue that could occur. Okay, number 8, written termination notices with properly documented reasons, and that you need for legal reasons, and approval of an appropriate official are required. You got to be careful a lot of times with grounds for discrimination and so forth. I'm kind of disappointed because one of the full-time faculty members was terminated, and she's finishing at the end of this term. Her last day will be September 5th. And my closest friend here, but anyway, African-American female. Now, because of the downsizing, they could attribute it to the fact that the program that she was most teaching in, CIS, does not really exist at this location. But you have to be careful. You've got a minority there who's being terminated, whereas what are we left with here at the Luke's campus with the full-time faculty? 3 old white guys, you know, which makes me wonder here. I mean, and the professor was like, oh, I mean, she was one of the hardest working professors here. She and I are the ones who were here at 10 o'clock at night during the week. Everybody else is gone, you know, but there were other grounds here, but you got to be really cautious here. I asked her about pursuing other avenues. She said, no, that's fine. She was anticipating this might occur.
Yeah, it's a lot of the professors that they had here that worked here, all of them are predominantly gone. I mean, they're bringing in a slew of new people, and
and part of it might be because of lower pay rates. I've been on a wage freeze for several years now because I'm at the top of the range, and it makes me kind of, and I have not protested, but it makes me, you know, worried. They say, you know, they might be able to cut Bill and bring in 2 other people who combined would equal what I'm making. You know, and it is a scary thing. I'm trying to hold out for 2 more years, so please be nice to me on the course survey. But if this were a year from now, I'd be more comfortable. But still trying to make it. We talk in the management 520 class about the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, but that supposedly protects people over 40. But if you can show economic justification for laying off older workers, then that's not a violation of the act. And what's usually true of older workers? They're making more money. You know, so it is kind of a delicate matter, certainly. But anyway, for this particular one here,
number 8, right?
Yeah, this number 8. Then it says you got to get approval of an appropriate official. When you have a termination, by the way, most companies have an exit interview process. In some cases, now here we're letting like our professor teach through the end of the term. In some places, when you are terminated, you will not know about it till that day. And they'll come with your final checks, any accrued vacation pay. I used to say a cardboard box for you to put your stuff in. They'll take your ID, you'll pack up, and they'll exit you out the parking lot.
Yes, I think in most cases now you kind of know, because for some reason the staff start acting really different. It's like,
yeah, because they know.
Yeah, and you can't get inside of certain systems.
All right, yes.
And that's so HR said, you guys are making it obvious and very uncomfortable. You shouldn't shut everything down at one time, because these people know that something's going on. And one of the guys like, I can't get in such a shop. Oh,
yes, I denied access, and I always was allowed access before.
Right.
Interesting, yes. For this particular number 8, authorization of transactions for A, and adequate documents and records. B's the usual, which is?
Recorded transactions.
Recorded transactions exist, yes. C, you could have a payroll check. CD, payroll check for somebody who was terminated. Letitia already told us about that termination procedure. Otherwise, somebody would stay on the payroll. And my favorite procedure for E, one recommendation is basically that do a surprise payroll payoff. Actually, this is covering the payroll chapter in a way, really. So that'll make it a little bit easier for us a little bit later today. Number 9, all checks not distributed to employees are returned to the treasurer for safekeeping. Now, Part A has 2 items. One is adequate segregation of duties or separation of duties. What's the other one? Unclaimed checks are returned to the treasurer for safekeeping. What would be the other internal control that we have not listed so far?
Physical control.
That's it. Lena's right. Physical control over assets and records, yes. Lena, what's B?
Recorded transactions exist.
Yeah, yes it is.
You didn't even look at the question.
All right. If you don't have to, then that one. The CD, again, we could have checks for non-existent employees, or it could be checks that are for people who are on vacation or something, and they don't have direct deposit. Of course, direct deposit is a great internal control to have. So that would avoid some of these problems. And they're worried about what happens about checks that are not picked up, to make sure they're not misappropriated by somebody else and then have a forged signature. I'd be curious what the percentage is of employees nationwide who have direct deposit versus paper checks. Do you have any idea?
I had to thumb through maybe 150. This company was kind of small, so I think they had like 700 employees. Half of their payroll was paper checks.
Oh wow, I'm surprised it was that high a percentage.
Yeah, and it was more the call center people, and a lot of them just didn't have a good relationship, banking institution relationship. So.
Well, you know, be surprised. There's a lot of people don't have bank accounts.
And I think it was a lot of the older ones, because they said it, and I kind of agree to some degree. I really don't, trust the banks, but it's more convenient for me to have it direct deposit versus trying to go and check in the bank and clear.
I know, but you wonder about why currency exchanges are in business. People cash their checks there because they don't have a regular bank. Mm-hmm. And of course, the currency exchanges charge usually exorbitant fees and everything for that particular service. That was the CD. They could be checks could be pilfered or cashed by the wrong person, or we could have non-existent employees. Now again, the answer to Part E would be a paper check situation. Examine canceled checks for proper endorsements, and then check back to a time record. So looking for canceled checks for proper endorsements supported by a time record. and I guess you could trace it to the active employee list. Now, if you had direct deposit, you're not endorsing a check, so there won't be any endorsements. I remember back in the old days, too, when I was an auditor, we talked about watching out for secondary endorsement on checks, where the original person endorsed it to somebody else, and then there was another as well. But we don't really run into that much nowadays. Number 10, online ability to add employees or change pay rates to the payroll master file is restricted via passwords to authorized HR personnel. They have authorization of transactions, but what's the other one? Besides authorization of transaction, what's the other obvious one?
Separation of duties.
Right, separation of duties, definitely. They have both for B, Elena?
Recorded transactions exist.
Yes, then they also have basically
And that they're
accuracy.
correct.
Yeah, correct amounts. Again, you could have a fictitious employee, or you could have an unimproved pay rate. You could have fictitious employees or an incorrect pay rate entered into the system.
Or what I like to call this company again, where if they had an event going on, if the event planner, which was in marketing, did a great job, they received a $5,000 just for that 1 week, just for that one event, $5,000 for the event going.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm in the wrong, but
You're in the wrong field, gee. That'd be nice. 5,000 for the 1 week.
this plus their regular rate because it was a weekly payroll.
Oh, so that's like a bonus.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. This company is pretty, it's not a big company, but they were based, you may have heard of them, Wheels.
No, I haven't, but
The father had a Chevy dealership on Cicero North, but the ironic thing is when you walk through the facility in Des Plaines, they've been to every inauguration where they actually, I don't know how.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they say they're very political.
They must have some influence, I'm just going to say.
Yeah, he has it with each president. His dad has it, it's a wall. The mom.
So regardless of which party, they've got the connections.
Yes.
Yes.
Democrat and Republican, they've been to every inauguration. They had when he was a child, the actual CEO. The son's about to take over now, but the CEO, it has when he was a younger child, his dad with each president, and then so on and so on. Yeah.
Actually, that's smart. If you want the truth here, I wouldn't do it, but I certainly can't be critical. Oh, what would you do for E, everyone?
Try to use a fake password.
Yeah, exactly. Have somebody who's not authorized try and enter the payroll master file. And you should get that designation, access denied.
So E was, I'm sorry.
Yes, to try and access, have someone who's not authorized try to access the
okay.
payroll master
Yeah.
file, and that's why it should be denied. Just one more in that chapter, although I've enjoyed that because it really covers the payroll area as well. So I've enjoyed that immensely. I'm glad we didn't try and rush it last week. 10-35 is the other one, and there's 8 of these. The first part is the same, page 327. It's the next question. What are the controls that were absent? Transaction-related audit objectives, that one's not as important to me, of course. And then for each misstatement, what's a control that could correct it?
What question are we on?
The next one.
35.
35.
Okay, thank you.
Which in the new edition is 10-36. 10-30. And they're in a different order. So I had to convert these. This is the new solutions manual to this one. All right, so I hope I didn't mix it up here. We'll see. There's 8 of these, sorry. Number 1, the incorrect price was used on sales invoices for billing shipments to customers because the wrong price was entered into the computer master file of prices. Now for Part A, there's ABC here. Part A, they have 2. I'll list the first one, you give me the second one. Adequate documents and records. Now, what's the second one? Somebody entered information into the master price list, like my example of the Jewel with items on sale. What should be the other one for Part A?
Independent checks.
Yes, independent checks on performance, excellent. So adequate documents and records and independent checks on performance. B is basically accuracy.